The sky over New Geneva was a soft shade of violet as the sun dipped below the floating towers. Hover cars glided between silver spires, casting long shadows over glass walkways. At the edge of the city, where the Space Relations Office overlooked the ocean, Lena Maris sat at her desk, her eyes fixed on the glowing screen. For most people on Earth, life in 2137 was simple and calm. War was a word used in history lessons. Energy came from the stars. Machines handled most work, and diseases had been mostly erased. Ever since Earth joined the Galactic Union, peace had become the new normal. But peace, Lena often thought, made people forget how to ask questions. She sipped her recycled citrus tea, scrolling through Union communiques. Another day of filtering alien messages, translating reports, and filing requests. Boring, predictable, just the way Earth liked it. Then a notification blinked red on her screen. Minister Varel, incoming transmission, level priority 1. Lena sat up. That wasn't normal. Priority 1 messages came from high Union officials, and only for matters that affected entire worlds. The hologram loaded slowly. When it finally appeared, the room dimmed, and the air grew still. A tall, thin figure stood in front of her, wrapped in flowing blue fabric. His eyes, large and silver, blinked without emotion. "I greet you, humans of Earth," Minister Varel said in a calm voice. "The Galactic Union, in its wisdom, offers your world a gift. A gift of safety." Lena frowned. "Safety? From what?" Varel continued. "We call it the Safeguard, a planetary defense network. It will shield your skies, protect your orbit, and ensure no harm reaches your home." The hologram cut out. A document followed. A treaty. It said the Union would build the Safeguard at no cost to Earth. No energy required from local sources. No Union troops involved. Just quiet construction and a guarantee of protection. Lena looked at the words. They were smooth and kind. Too smooth. An hour later, the world reacted. Screens lit up in every nation. Leaders smiled for cameras. People filled the streets, celebrating. Children waved little Union flags, and news anchors called it a new chapter in human security. But Lena wasn't celebrating. She watched the press conference from her desk. Minister Varel stood beside Earth's president, his hands folded neatly. "We thank the Union for this great gift," the president said. "We are safer than ever." Lena leaned closer. Something about Varel's stillness bothered her. He never blinked during the entire broadcast. Later that evening, she stayed in the office after everyone had gone home. The streets outside were glowing with celebration. Drones dropped flower petals over the crowds. Fireworks lit the sky, real ones, for once. She opened the Safeguard Treaty again. She read every word, line by line. Nothing seemed out of place. But one sentence stayed with her. Deployment to commence immediately upon acceptance. Full activation by Union Command. No reason given. No danger described. Lena whispered aloud, "Why are we being protected?" The room had no answer. Behind her, the night sky blinked with stars, and, just barely visible beyond the moon, strange shapes began to form in orbit. The next morning, Earth was glowing with joy. News feeds showed parades from every continent. Children made models of the Safeguard Towers. Social media overflowed with praise for the Galactic Union. Words like grateful, protected, and safe forever flooded every screen. But Lena Maris felt none of it. She sat quietly at her desk in the Space Relations Office, staring at a paused frame of Minister Varel. His face was perfectly still. No smile. No frown. Just calm, distant, unreadable. Her coworkers moved cheerfully around her, chatting about the announcement. One of them, a tall man named Jaren, tossed a wrapped sweet onto her desk. "You hear the news, Lena? Full deployment begins today. The Union's building those shield towers in orbit already." Lena nodded, not looking up. "Yes, I heard. They're doing it for free." "I mean, who does that?" he said, grinning. "It's amazing. I feel like nothing bad could ever happen again." Lena finally looked at him. "Doesn't that bother you a little?" Jaren blinked. "What do you mean?" "They're building a massive defense system over our planet," she said slowly. "No warning, no threat. Just protection. Out of nowhere. Why now?" He shrugged. "Maybe they're just being nice. Maybe they want to help." "Do they ever give without a reason?" she asked. Jaren's smile faded slightly. "You always find the dark cloud, Lena." When he walked away, she turned back to her screen. The Safeguard's design file had been partially released to the public. The system would include orbital sentry rings, atmospheric force fields, and deep space radar. No human technology could match it. Its defense range extended well beyond the solar system. Still, there was no mention of what it was meant to stop. Lena opened the translation logs from Minister Varel's speech. Though the live version had been smooth, she wanted to see the original transmission in his native tongue. She was trained in over a dozen Union languages, and though Varel's species used complex phrasing, some parts stood out. She found a line near the end of the original message. In the official Earth version, it read, "We offer the safeguard freely, in the spirit of peace." But in the original language, the verb was different. Closer to. "We offer the safeguard quickly, before the awakening." Lena sat back in her chair. That word, awakening, did not belong in a peace treaty. She ran the phrase again, just to be sure. Same result. Before the awakening. Was it a mistranslation? Or had someone altered the message? She sent a formal request to view the raw Union briefing logs. Normally, she'd get access in minutes. But this time, the screen flashed red. Access denied. Authorization level 5 required. Level 5 was restricted to Earth's top leaders, or Union envoys. Lena stared at the rejection notice. She wasn't supposed to be curious. She wasn't supposed to dig. That night, the sky above New Geneva shimmered with blue lights. People cheered as the first safeguard towers came into view, thin black lines stretching across the horizon, like rings slowly being drawn around the planet. Lena stood outside, looking up. Beside her, a woman clapped with her children, smiling at the sky. "We're so lucky," she said to no one in particular. "So lucky the Union protects us." Lena didn't respond. Her eyes weren't on the towers. They were on the stars beyond them. And she had only one thought. What are they protecting us from? 2 days passed. The safeguard towers were growing faster than anyone expected. Thousands of dark, needle-like structures had formed above Earth, circling like silent guardians. Their surfaces shimmered with strange symbols and patterns that no human had seen before. People called them beautiful. Some even called them sacred. Lena Maris wasn't looking at the sky. She was deep underground, in the oldest section of the Space Relations Archive. It wasn't an easy place to reach. She had to use an old access code, one she wasn't sure still worked. The elevator took her down 12 levels beneath the main building, far below the noise and cheer of the city above. The archive was quiet and cold. Dust hung in the air like fog. Rows of data cores lined the walls, humming softly. Most of this information had been forgotten: old reports, ancient transmissions, and records from Earth's early years in the Galactic Union. She slipped on a pair of gloves and connected to the system using a manual link. It was slower than modern access, but it couldn't be tracked. She started with a keyword search. Safeguard, 0 results. Planetary Defense System, 0 results. Union Protection Project, 1 result. It was an old report, 20 years ago, written by an Earth diplomat named Noran Kai. The file was marked confidential and tagged with a Union encryption stamp. The title read, Preliminary Meeting, Sector Echo 7, Concerns of Containment Breach. Lena opened it. The text was brief. Union officials report disturbance at edge of Echo 7. Unnamed energy signature found near Dead Star system. Union expresses concern but withholds full data. Earth advised to increase long-range scans but not alert public. Internal suggestion of using new member worlds as buffer zones should threat spread. Recommendation: monitor closely. That was all. No follow-up, no details. Lena stared at the phrase, buffer zones. It sounded harmless, almost scientific. But she understood what it meant. They were talking about using Earth, and planets like it, as shields. Sacrifices, if something bad moved into Union space. She dug deeper, searching Noran Kai's name. She found a retirement notice. He had left public life 10 years ago, with no explanation. No contact, no interviews. He had vanished from all public records. A thought came to her. What if he knew more? She copied the file and disconnected. Back in her apartment, she activated her private network. It was a hidden line, used by quiet thinkers, scientists, old officials, and those who didn't trust easy answers. She sent a message into the channel. Looking for Noran Kai. Former diplomat. Urgent. An hour passed. Then a reply blinked on her screen. Meet me. No cameras. No devices. Old Skyport, Level 3. Lena hesitated. The old Skyport had been shut down for years, replaced by newer, cleaner stations. But she knew the place. It was quiet, forgotten. Like the truth she was chasing. She dressed in plain clothes, left her badge behind, and took the night tram across the city. The towers of the safeguard glowed above her, casting shadows over the streets. People waved to them, smiled at them, like they were gods watching from the sky. When she reached level 3 of the abandoned port, she found an old man sitting on a bench. His coat was patched, his eyes tired but sharp. "Narankai?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "You're looking for answers no one else wants." "I found your report," she said. "Echo 7. The energy signal. The buffer zones." "What was it?" He looked up at the ceiling, as if remembering something heavy. "The Union calls it an echo, but it's more like a memory. Something old. Something buried." Lena sat beside him. "It moved once," Naren said. "Long ago. Before any of us were part of the Union. They found its mark, a world burned from the inside out. Not war. Not explosion. Just emptiness." "What was it?" she whispered. "No one knows," he said. "But they're scared of it. Scared enough to build walls. Scared enough to offer gifts." Lena's heart beat faster. "So Earth isn't being protected. We're being positioned." Noran nodded. "Exactly." He handed her a small drive. "Everything I kept off the record. Be careful." She took it and stood to leave. As she walked back through the old skyport, she looked out the broken windows at the towers circling the planet. They no longer looked like shields. They looked like chains. Lena Maris didn't sleep that night. She sat at her desk, the small data drive from No Ran Kai glowing faintly in the dark. The city outside her window buzzed with celebration. Safeguard construction had reached its halfway point. Large screens in the streets showed smiling world leaders shaking hands with Union envoys. People believed they were living in the safest time in human history. But Lena had seen too much now. She inserted the drive into her offline terminal. The screen lit up with folders, reports, videos, personal notes. They were all marked unofficial in bold red letters. Files that were never meant to be seen by anyone outside a very small group of diplomats. She opened the first video. It was grainy, old footage from a Deep Space Union vessel. The camera shook slightly as a voice spoke in Union Common. "We are approaching Echo 7 now, scanning." There's no signal, no life signs. Just static. The camera turned slowly. A black planet filled the screen. It had no lights, no cities, no orbiting satellites. Just deep, cracked rock and wide, circular scars, like something had peeled the surface away. One of the voices whispered, "This was a colony world. 5 billion lived here." Lena leaned closer. There were no signs of war. No ruins. Just silence and dust. She played the second file. It was a private recording. Noran sat in a dark room, his face tight with fear. "I was in the meeting when they first showed the readings. The Union didn't explain much. They don't know much. But that planet, something touched it. Passed through it. It didn't invade, didn't destroy. It just took everything." His voice dropped lower. "And now it's moving again." Lena closed the files and rubbed her eyes. Her heart was pounding. She looked back at the official safeguard treaty. It said nothing about threats. Nothing about Echo 7. Nothing about the ancient thing moving through space. It was all hidden behind careful language. A part of her wanted to ignore it, to pretend she hadn't seen any of it. But that wasn't who she was. She made a decision. The next morning, Lena went back to the Space Relations office. She walked straight to Minister Varel's private contact terminal. The secretary tried to stop her, but she pushed past. She sent a direct communication request to Varel's orbital vessel. It was risky, maybe even illegal, but the request was accepted. The screen lit up. Varel's silver eyes appeared, calm as always. "You're very bold, Miss Maris," he said. "I respect that." Lena didn't waste time. "I know about Echo 7. Varel blinked. "Once. Slowly. "I know what the safeguard really is," she said. "You're not protecting us. You're using us. Earth is the bait, isn't it?" There was a long silence. Then Varel spoke. "The Union faces threats it cannot always explain. Not everything in the universe is logical. Some things are older than knowledge." "Then why not warn us?" she demanded. "Because your people trust peace," he said softly. "If we spoke of this truth, panic would rise. Division. War. You have a beautiful world. We gave you safety." Lena narrowed her eyes. "Safety through ignorance isn't safety. It's control." Varel's tone didn't change. "You are alive. That is all that matters." She leaned forward. "Then tell me the truth. What is it? What's coming?" He paused, then said one word. "Memory." Lena frowned. "What do you mean?" "It's not a creature. Not a ship. It is a force. It moves through space like wine through dry grass. It forgets nothing. It remembers what was and brings silence to what is. We don't stop it. We distract it." She felt a chill run through her body. And Earth is your distraction. Varel said nothing. Lena sat in silence for a long moment. I'm going to tell the people. He finally replied, they will not believe you. And if they do, what will they do? Fight the stars? Hide in tunnels? I don't know, she said. But I won't let them walk into this blind. Varel gave the smallest nod. Then you understand the cost of truth. The call ended. Lena sat back in her chair. The hum of the office around her felt louder now. The world still smiled. But she knew the silence beneath it was growing. She downloaded every file she had, made copies, and encrypted them. She couldn't trust the public channels. But she knew of one last group, the free colonies on Mars. Independent thinkers. Scientists who had left Earth to study space on their own terms. If anyone would believe her, it would be them. She looked up at the sky through the window. The safeguard towers now blinked like stars. Watching. Waiting. Lena whispered to herself, they think we're too blind to see. Let's prove them wrong. Lena Maris sat alone in her apartment, staring at the blinking cursor on her screen. The files were ready. Dozens of reports, hidden video logs, and messages from No-Ran Kai, all of it proof that the safeguard was not a gift, but a strategy. Earth was not being protected. It was being exposed. She had spent the last 2 days trying to send the truth through Earth's public networks. Each attempt failed. The system blocked her transmissions. Her login credentials were revoked. Her access to even the basic Union records was cut off. It was clear now the Union was watching her. Or someone on Earth was doing it for them. But she had one last chance, the Mars Relay. The free colonies on Mars were not fully connected to Earth's communication systems. They had their own networks, their own researchers, and most importantly, their own doubts about the Galactic Union. If she could get the message to them, they could spread it. Not just on Mars, but beyond. She powered up an old encrypted comlink, one used only for deep space transmissions, mostly left forgotten by Earth authorities. It would take longer, but it was harder to trace. She loaded the files, checked them twice, then began her message. To the free colonies of Mars, this is Lena Maris, Communications Specialist, Earth Space Relations Office. I have urgent information. The safeguard is not what the Union claims. It is not protection. It is positioning. Earth is being used as a decoy, a target. The files attached include first-hand evidence. You must share this. If you delay, we may not have time to prepare. We are not safe. We are bait. She had sinned. The message began to transmit in fragments, broken into coded packets to avoid detection. It would take 6 hours to reach Mars. Lena sat back, exhausted. The room around her was silent, filled only with the soft hum of electronics and the occasional blink of lights from the city outside. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to close her eyes. But the peace didn't last. Her door chimed. She opened her eyes. Not many people came to her apartment, especially not unannounced. She stood carefully, crossed the room, and looked at the viewer. A face appeared. Artificial. Smooth. It was an assistant drone, one of the Union's humanoid machines, used mostly for light tasks. But this one was dressed in black and bore the Union's command emblem. Lena opened the door slightly. Can I help you? The drone spoke in a neutral voice. Lena Maris. You have been flagged for unsanctioned data use. Please report to Union Review Office 17 at once. She stared at it. On what grounds? The drone paused. Security risk. Information breach. Transmission to unauthorized recipients. They knew. Lena smiled slightly. I'm not coming with you. The drone tilted its head. Failure to comply will be recorded. Go ahead, she said. Record it. She closed the door in its face. Then she grabbed her bag, stuffed it with a drive, a small tablet, and a tracker scrambler. She couldn't stay here. Not now. Lena slipped out through the back stairwell and vanished into the lower levels of New Geneva, where the cameras were few and the walls still bore the marks of Earth's past, cracked stone, rusted railings, and flickering lights. She took shelter in a storage hub beneath an old transport line. There, she found a portable signal reader and monitored the status of her message. Still transmitting. 81% complete. Time passed slowly. The dark of the tunnels felt safer than the bright city above. The deeper she went, the more she felt the Union's grip fade. She sat beside a ventilation unit, pulling her coat around her, and checked the sky through a small window in the ceiling. The safeguard towers were now complete. They encircled the planet in perfect symmetry. Rings of defense, the Union called them. To Lena, they looked more like a target drawn in the stars. Suddenly, the signal reader beeped. Transmission complete. She stared at the screen. The message had reached the Mars relay, delivered and acknowledged. There was hope. A new message blinked back from Mars. Received. Reviewing now. This changes everything. We will act. You are not alone. Relief flooded through her. Someone out there believed her. But the moment of peace ended quickly. The sky shifted. Above the city, beyond the towers, the stars flickered, then vanished. It was as if a curtain had been drawn over the edge of space. Not clouds. Not shadow. Something was there. The atmosphere sensors on her reader screamed with alerts. Gravitational shift. Energy distortion. Unknown mass entering solar range. She rushed to the stairwell and climbed up 3 levels to a rooftop. Others were already looking up. People stared in confusion and awe. Children pointed. A woman whispered, "Is that a ship?" But it wasn't a ship. It had no shape, no engines, no lights. It was a black presence, blocking the stars. The safeguard towers lit up. Blue energy surged across the sky in arcs of power. Beams shot upward, forming a glowing dome above Earth. The thing didn't move. It simply watched. If it had eyes. The city grew quiet. Lena stood frozen. The safeguard had activated. And whatever had come, it had noticed. The stars were gone. In their place was a black shape, vast and without edges. It didn't reflect light. It didn't glow or pulse or move like a ship. It simply was. A silent wall in the sky. As if space itself had curled inward and stopped existing beyond it. People all over Earth looked up, confused and afraid. For the first time in years, the streets fell quiet. No music played. No voices cheered. Even the news channels went still, unsure of what to say. Lena Maris stood on a rooftop, surrounded by a small crowd of strangers. They whispered to each other, asking the same question over and over. What is that? No one had an answer. Above them, the safeguard towers began to shift. They moved like clockwork, aligning in perfect rows. Thin lines of blue energy stretched between them, forming a grid across the upper sky. Then the grid thickened. Bright pulses ran along the lines, building a dome over the planet. The safeguard was now fully active. The world watched as beams of invisible force fired into space. They weren't weapons. Lena knew that now. They were signals, distractions. The Union didn't plan to fight. They planned to redirect. And whatever was out there had arrived early. Lena stepped back from the edge and opened her portable scanner. She tuned it to the emergency Union channel. Static. Then a voice came through, faint, broken. Object has no detectable structure. No heat, no life, no motion. It absorbs scans. We cannot measure depth. Requesting further. The signal cut off. She switched channels. Military feed. Repeat. The safeguard is holding. Energy field stable. Unknown entity not responding. Holding position at edge of lunar orbit. Then, silence. The black shape remained still. It didn't move. It didn't attack. But Earth could feel it. It was like a cold wind pressing against glass, unseen but impossible to ignore. Lena's tablet blinked. A message from Mars. We see it too. Confirmed as same type recorded near Echo 7. Advise immediate global communication blackout. Do not engage. Do not transmit. Too late. The safeguard had already broadcasted across the system. She looked back up. For a long moment, nothing changed. Then, the blackness shifted. Not in movement, but in presence. A ripple passed through the stars, as if the object had blinked. Lena felt a deep pressure in her head. Not pain. A weight. Something vast and ancient brushing against her mind, not with words, but with memory. She saw flashes. A burned world. A city of glass shattered into dust. Beings she couldn't recognize crumbling into silence. Over and over, the same pattern. Presence, stillness, erasure. Then it passed. The pressure faded. She gasped and fell to her knees. Others around her collapsed too, clutching their heads, eyes wide. Whatever it was, it had seen them. The safeguard responded immediately. Its towers pulsed brighter. The sky crackled with blue energy. A low hum filled the air, deeper than sound, vibrating through the bones. Then came a flash. A beam shot from the core tower, straight toward the object. It wasn't an attack. It was the same as before, a message. A flare. Something to draw attention. The object paused. For the first time, it reacted. It turned. Not with motion, but with focus. The black wall shifted its face toward Earth. The hum grew louder. The safeguard grid began to shake. Then, slowly, the pressure lessened. The object began to drift sideways. Not toward Earth. Not toward Mars. It was leaving? Lena's breath caught in her throat. She looked at the scanner. Energy readings were dropping. The gravitational distortion was fading. The object moved past Earth's orbit, gliding deeper into space. Not because it was defeated, but because it had been redirected. The safeguard had done its job. Earth was not destroyed. The presence had passed by. People cried in the streets. Some prayed. Some shouted in confusion. Others simply stared, unable to understand what had happened. But Lena understood. She sat down on the rooftop, heart pounding. Not with relief, but with dread. They weren't safe. They had just been lucky. The Union had used Earth to pull the threat in, catch its attention, then push it away again. The towers were not a shield. They were a flare, a beacon, a decoy. Earth had survived by playing a dangerous game. And next time, the presence might not leave. She looked up at the quiet sky, now filled again with stars. The towers glowed faintly. The hum was gone. Lena whispered to herself, "We called it safety. But we were just bait." Days passed. The skies over Earth were clear again. The strange black object had moved beyond the solar system, vanishing into the darkness without a trace. No damage had been done. No lives lost. The towers of the safeguard remained lit but silent, standing tall like cold sentinels above the clouds. To the world, it seemed like a miracle. Leaders made speeches. They called the safeguard a success beyond expectation. They praised the Galactic Union for its wisdom and protection. News anchors wore hopeful smiles, repeating the same message over and over. Earth is safe. The danger is gone. We were never truly in harm's way. But Lena Maris knew better. She sat in her office once again, the place that had become both her duty and her prison. Her access had been quietly restored. No one spoke to her about her missing days or the message she had sent to Mars. It was as if the entire event had been wiped from Earth's memory, tidied up, sealed behind polished words and false comfort. She kept her head down for now. Not because she had given up, but because she understood something important. Truth has a rhythm. It must be timed right. Late that evening, she walked home beneath the glowing sky. A group of children played in a nearby park, pretending to be safeguard towers, lifting their arms, humming like machines, saving the world from invisible threats. Their parents smiled and laughed. No one was afraid anymore. Lena stopped by the edge of a quiet plaza. A giant screen showed a looping video, Minister Varel, standing beside Earth's president, smiling calmly. "Together, we have shown that peace is stronger than fear," Varel said. "Earth is a valued part of the Galactic Union. And now, it is a protected one." Protected. The word echoed in Lena's mind like a cruel joke. Later that night, she opened her hidden terminal. A message from Mars was waiting. Confirmed. Object is the same as Echo 7 incident. Data from Earth Safeguard has given us clearer readings. It may not be a single entity, it may be a pattern, or a force that follows thought, memory, attention. Earth was spared because the flare redirected it. For now. But it is not gone. Just watching from further away. We've begun building our own warning systems, this time, ones we control. Thank you for the truth. You did more than survive. You exposed the game. Lena read the message 3 times. Slowly. Carefully. Mars had believed her. And more importantly, they had acted. Others would follow. And in time, Earth might come to understand what had really happened, not through fear, but through curiosity, the same kind that had driven her to ask the first question. She opened a new file and began to write. Personal record, Lena Maris. The safeguard was never a shield. It was a signal, a way to draw something ancient and dangerous toward us, and then push it away. We survived, but not because we were ready. We survived because something else caught its attention first. The Union used us. They saw our planet as a piece in a larger puzzle, one they still don't fully understand. But now we know. And knowing is how we start to take back control. She saved the file and locked it behind triple encryption. Then she stood at her window, looking up at the towers one last time. Their lights blinked softly, like distant lighthouses on a quiet sea. Maybe that's what we are now, she whispered. A warning. A light in the dark. She turned away from the window. Tomorrow, the world would return to normal. Children would play. Governments would praise the Union. People would look up at the stars without fear. And Lena Maris would be ready for the next question. Because next time, someone else might ask, what are we being protected from? And they'd need someone who already knew the answer.